Good evening, comrades, and today I am going to be talking to you about your standard of living. Now, think about your life. How do you live your life every day? You probably go to work, come home, at the end of the week you get your paycheck, and you spend that paycheck on money-related things like food, electrical, housing, medical, all of that great stuff. Well, the system I just described is a system called capitalism. Now, let me explain to you how capitalism works, but I'm going to do it using popular television icons. Here we have SpongeBob and Patrick from the hit Nickelodeon television show SpongeBob SquarePants. Now, let's say SpongeBob is an average Joe who works every day in the mines, like every average person. He makes a decent living. It's pretty fair. He makes, an average amount for a worker, which we will represent with these 3 golden blocks. Each golden block represents some amount of wealth. Now, let's have a look at Patrick. Patrick is a lawyer, which is a fairly respectable thing in society. But he doesn't work as hard as the coal miners. He's not a very good lawyer. He doesn't, do his job properly. But because he is a lawyer, he gets paid more. He gets paid 5 gold bricks. Now, I know what you're thinking. 5 is not that much more than 3, and you could still probably make a living off of 3. You could still survive. You could still feed a family. But you forgot about the expenses. You gotta pay for food, medical, all that stuff. The red blocks represent medical. Now, Patrick has 5, and SpongeBob has 3 of the golden bricks. Now, each of them has to pay 1 block of wealth for medical. Now, the blue represents food. Each one of them has to pay 1 block for food. Now, Patrick has 3 bars of wealth left, whereas SpongeBob only has 1 block of wealth left. And you haven't even factored in things such as housing, electrical, water, and other living expenses you may encounter in your everyday life. Now, not only does Patrick have more money than SpongeBob does, even though he works less hard, he's also respected more, and he has a higher place in society than SpongeBob. Is that really fair? I mean, Patrick, he's not very good at his job. He doesn't work hard, and he doesn't have any good cases, whereas SpongeBob works hard every day to power the machines that run his society. And yet, SpongeBob isn't nearly as recognized as Patrick. Again, is that really fair? I don't think so. Now, it may sound dismal and dim that your living standards are this bad, but let me tell you something, comrade. There is a way for change. What is this way, you may ask? Well, it's to get rid of capitalism. Now, one hit from the Black Bat will make all of your problems related to wealth go away. But I know what you're thinking. We can't just get rid of the government. Then that would be even worse. Well, my friends, here is the solution. It's called communism. What is communism, you may ask? Well, unlike a capitalist government where the wealth is provided by the employer of the citizen, and their salary is determined by the employer. Under communism, the government is the one who pays all of the people, and the people get paid an equal amount. Now, Patrick is still a lawyer, and SpongeBob is still a worker in the mines. They both, however, earn 3 bars of wealth under the government because the government pays them equally. Now, let's say that SpongeBob is working extra hard in the coal mines, He is doing a super great job. Well, he might get benefits from the government. He might get 1 extra bar of wealth just because he's working harder. Now, let's say Patrick isn't doing such a good job. He might get 1 of his bars of gold removed. Now, I know what you're thinking. Isn't that unfair, and isn't that basically just capitalism? Well, no, because there's one other thing that's different about communism, and that is the supplies for everyday life. Now, unlike capitalism, where you have to pay for your own way, you have to get your own supplies, you have to pay for your own standards of living, under communism, it's provided for you for free, as long as you're a citizen of the government. They will both be receiving food without having to sacrifice wealth. And they will both be receiving medical attention without having to sacrifice their wealth. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why is this system so great? Are there any downsides? Well, I guess you could say that everything is owned by the state. That could be a downside. But it's an easy and plentiful sacrifice to make once you realize that everything is going to be provided for you as long as the government owns everything. Now, you may have things like freedom of speech taken away, some basic liberties, but it's only to preserve the government that controls you. The government will provide everything as long as you provide for the government. And that is a saying that you will live by. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can I get communism into my country? My country is capitalist, and if communism is so good, why aren't more countries doing it? Well, back in our other scenario, Patrick was on top and SpongeBob was on the bottom. Patrick was suppressing communism because he knew that if communism were to prevail, he would lose his position of power. And so, the greedy capitalist pigs at the top of your society, they don't like communism because they know that the working class will rise and they will lose their wealth if communism were to prevail. So what you can do to overthrow the greedy capitalist pigs is you can start a revolution, and you, the working class, can become powerful. You can be just as good as that high-class lawyer, the accountant, the king, the monarch of your land, and you can still be a great person doing it. Now, how can you do this? How do I know what is good communism and what is bad capitalism? Well, it's very simple. Let me tell you. There is actually a manual that goes with communism. It's called the Communist Manifesto. Now, the Communist Manifesto is a great book. If you read through it, it tells you everything you need to know about being a communist. It will tell you the standards of living. It will tell you how the government provides for you. And it will tell you how great communism is. It is written by my mans, Karl Marx and Frederick Engels. It's good stuff. You should give it a read. Now, I know what you're thinking. There's got to be some more downsides to communism. There's got to be something else. Well, the example I used were those of lawyer and coal worker. But there are other jobs, obviously. So let's have a look at this scenario. Let's say Patrick is a farmer. Patrick owns 1 acre of land. Now this acre is enough to grow 6 food cubes. Now under capitalism, these food cubes would be his to do as he wishes. He could eat them, or he could sell them to gain wealth. But under communism, it's different. Let us say that SpongeBob is the state, the government, the controlling power, whatever you want to call it. SpongeBob owns this land, not Patrick. Patrick is just the worker. So this means SpongeBob is now allowed to take this food and distribute it evenly among the people. Patrick will get a share of this, and the government will also take some of it to provide for their workers and, of course, other people that need it. So the food is evenly distributed among the people. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would you want this? Patrick is not getting as much as he nearly could have under capitalism. Well, since the government took some of his food, Patrick will be provided medical, and Patrick will be provided more food. Now, the communist government will control all your land, and some might see that as a downside, but it's really more of an upside, and you'll get used to it. Now, here's another scenario. Let's say our man SpongeBob here has a problem with the government. Now, let's use Patrick as the government this time. SpongeBob is going to voice his complaint. He's going to say, I think that the government is unfairly distributing food and it's becoming too swayed. Well, here's what's probably going to happen. And he will be silenced because criticisms of the government, it's not really allowed. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds like some pretty harsh downsides. Why would I want that if I can't speak out about my beliefs? Well, you get used to it. And the thing is, in capitalism, you really can't, voice your beliefs either. I mean, think about it. If you don't have the money to fund yourself, no one takes you seriously. So I say to you, do you want to live the kind of life where you're constantly oppressed by your overlords? Or do you want to live the kind of life where you're constantly oppressed by your overlords, but you don't have to worry about food? The choice is yours. Except it's not, because the government controls you. Thank you.